Got it. Oh, leave meeting. I didn't realize once it's recording, I can leave meeting. That's exciting.
All right. Um, Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Rise podcast, where we talk about resiliency, identity, strength, and empowerment. My name's Aaliyah Miller. I'm your host, and today we have arguably the most important guest that this podcast will ever have, because he is the reason that this podcast even exists in the first place. So today we have Jeff Pelon. Super excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
I am well. Good afternoon. It's still afternoon for you, right?
It's afternoon. um, all right. So, Jeff, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I enjoy short walks anywhere, and I don't like running, so that's why I do CrossFit. There we go. This is basic. Um, I I am currently. What do I do currently? I am a CrossFit coach. I am a CrossFit box owner, past tense. I am an Olympic weightlifting coach. I helped coach University of Michigan weightlifting for a while, and I've coached several powerlifters for state records, female powerlifters, and I've worked at Powerhouse Gym, which was fun, and I've worked at Bally Total Fitness, which was a lot less fun, and that was more selling memberships for people who it was the Planet Fitness, but at a lot more money. And then I've worked as a adolescent substance abuse counselor for almost 10 years. I was a case manager for adolescents in Western Wayne County, which means I was a probation officer for youths for Detroit and the surrounding area. I did that for about a year. That was a tough job. A lot of other different things, but it's almost always been involved with helping people. I've been at 15, I was in long-term inpatient drug treatment for 26 months, and I've been sober since January 7th, 1991, so a little over 31 years, which is
That's
also my daughter's birthday.
oh my
But
gosh.
so when my wife, we were having a scheduled C-section, she was due a little bit later. I asked the doctor if he could pull her out on the 7th since that's my sobriety date, and he goes, "Yes, that is awesome. Let's do that." And
That is so
so
cool.
I got to share my sobriety date with her as a birthday.
Wow.
So
That's
that's pretty
really cool.
fantastic. So that's about the coolest stuff. I mean, I married an English woman, which is super cool because she has an accent. And both my kids are dually citizens of England and the US, which is fun. So yeah, that's about me in a nutshell.
All right. So can you talk about you run a nonprofit, um, youth esteem services? Can you talk about that?
Yes. So a couple years ago, I sold my portion of the CrossFit gym and recentered myself much more towards God, my family, and then basically the center out instead of outward in, which is super beneficial. Because my identity, which is a great point, which is great to come back to, because my identity was wrapped up as a CrossFit gym owner and not as a dad, a husband, a son, like all those things. So I've always worked with adolescents. I've always worked with mindset coaching. I've been doing mindset coaching for 31 years. I just didn't know it was really called mindset coaching. And then uh, I started really listening to Simon Sinek several years ago, and one of the things he said that made a huge impact on me. He said instead of calling it a nonprofit, which automatically is a negative connotation, he calls it a for impact. And I went, that's where I'm going to go. I want a for impact. And I thought, well, what do I? It's got to be with kids. And a lot of it has to be centered around working out and exercise and moving because I just felt better naturally when I moved and all that stuff. So my dad came up with a name, Yes Foundation. So it's abbreviated. It's Y.E.S. And the tagline is, "Can I make a difference? Yes, we can." And I love that because um, my childhood, I was not good. I had two loving parents who were still married. Were married then. My dad was, excuse me, an active alcoholic, but functioning very, very financially. We were well off. It wasn't until I was older that I realized my folks were rich when I was growing up. I didn't know people didn't have dance floors in their houses and pinball machines and 12-seat bars, and their dad didn't come home with a brand new like small plane once in a while. Because my mom was, she made me wear hand me downs and go to Woolworths and like Sears and get those clothing because she was like, you are not going to be arrogant and uppity. So I was like, it wasn't until I was older I was talking about it. Somebody went, you were rich. So I asked my folks, and my parents were like, yeah, we were. I didn't see it. So being that I had such low self-esteem, and even though I was always the life of the party, I was always fun loving and laughing, I really hated pretty much everything about myself. I did not like the way I was premature, and my mom, a woman came over with rubella, so German measles, when I was in utero. And back in the 70s, which is how old I am, they, a lot of times, if they found out they had been exposed, they would have had an abortion because of the birth defects. So my birth defect was, my bone growth was always about 5.5 years behind. I was premature. I was born with a heart valve issue, so I still have like a leaky heart now, but it's not really that bad. Um, but I was always tiny. And so my brother is about 5'11. My son's 5'11. I'm 5'5. My mom's 5'6. So that's just God's sense of humor, like whatever. Um, and so I never felt valuable as a man. I I liked sports, but I didn't like getting hurt. I didn't want, like, winning was not very big for me. Making sure everybody had fun was very big for me. And it was like, even when people wouldn't play, guns right, and they would be like, you had a force field. I'd be like, okay, then we had a force field. Let's start over. It's okay. People don't like that. Like, I was always like, as long as everybody's having fun, who cares? And that's where I got my self esteem from when everybody was happy. Well, luckily, being in long term inpatient treatment, I became a ward of the state of Michigan. So I was in the foster system, even though I went home with different foster parents from the treatment center I was in. So I was in with about 300 different people. Most of the time, we'd go home with boys, between 5 and 6 other boys, or we'd go home with sometimes with girls once we were longer in the program because we didn't sleep in the same rooms as boys and girls and all that stuff. But I did that for 26 months, which was awesome because I was parented by a lot of different folks. But I also realized my tribe was bigger than I thought it was because I would be laughing in a room and everybody would be laughing, and then I would be sitting there thinking, I really just want to kill myself, and none of these people even know. And then I met 300 other people who felt the exact same way or thought the same way as me, and I thought, oh, maybe I'm not a beautiful, unique snowflake. Like, maybe other people have these thoughts. Oh, and one of the best things I learned in treatment was, um, somebody said, listen, if there's a name for it, or especially if it's illegal, people have done it before. And so people have thought about it. And I was like, whoa, that's big. Okay. And I know that's a strange freedom, but that was a lot of freedom to me. That was much more of realizing I was more connected than I thought I was. And so when I realized that's what I wanted to do, and when I realized the freedom of being okay, not being okay, and realizing, and this was before social media. This is a long time ago. This is before pagers, so this is old school. That people only showed you the best of themselves, and they tried to hold it all together. And I was like, what I realized is that's not how I was going to live. Not only would I not stay sober, but I just wasn't happy and didn't feel freedom pretending. And so instead of trying to make other people fit what I was going through, I really reached out and found my tribe, and then was just honest from the beginning and said, "Here I am. If you don't like that, that's okay. We're just not going to hang out." And it's nothing to do with being bad against you or me or whatever. It's just, you know, I it was more of a selfish. If I'm going to stay alive and not cause emotional hurricanes everywhere I go, I need to do this. And what I realized is I wanted to give that opportunity, or work on helping people experience that for themselves. And so I in 1991, I became a peer counselor for the treatment center I was at. So and back then they could bill for me because it was old school. Like they were like, "Oh, you're underneath somebody, fine." And that's what I went to school for. I have an associate's in mental health social work, which is a specific program that was longer than just a 2-year liberal arts. Then I decided I didn't want to do social work anymore. I wanted to be into psychology. That was a fun choice. And so then I spent the next, I don't even know how many years, probably about 5 more years getting the rest of my 4-year degree for my BS in psychology with a minor in addiction studies. And then I'm also a certified addictions and drug and alcohol counselor from the state of Michigan. So I also have that. Then I also have my L1, my L2 from CrossFit, my CrossFit Kids cert. Then I have my United States of America weightlifting level 1 cert. And when I realized from when I was, I think, 19, 18 or 19, that I just wanted to help youth. And what I realized, because I did not pick things up quickly, that my youth stretched into my mid 20s, um, slightly later, until I met my wife, and I was 27, because I was like, yeah, I need some help. Somebody's got to help me out here. God was like, yeah, this is too much. We got to hook you up, because good Lord, son, like you got to do something. And then the youth esteem services is during COVID, I really dove into listening to podcasts and reading every day. And what my heart called me to do is one of the things I liked. E.T., the hip hop preacher, Eric Thomas, is really awesome. If you want to, be successful as bad as you want to breathe, that guy. And he's from Detroit, by the way. He made a point, said, find your heart and your passion, figure out where the gap is, and fill it. And what I am really good at is seeing people for what they really are without them necessarily having to tell me, which is why I appreciated that you let me just see you, and then I told you I saw you, and you're like, okay, I guess you kind of do see me. This is weird. Um, and I spoke to my dad, which is awesome, because one of the things I really wanted in my life was a relationship with my dad, and he's been sober for 33 years. He got sober when I went into treatment. He didn't relapse like I did, and have his heart stop from doing drugs and then start again, and be in a runaway shelter. Yeah, I had some issues when I was younger, and so yeah, at one point my heart stopped when I was doing nitrous. It was not the best, and then I fell backwards. It's a weird sensation knowing that your heart stops. The best thing I can explain to somebody is, when it stops beating. Just like if when all of a sudden you're like, am I, or like almost like a skip beat when you gotta, ooh, ooh. Well, when it stops. And I thought, well, this sucks. I'm dead. And I fell backwards and my heart started. And I was like, man, that was horrible. And I did the drug immediately, right again. Not because I wanted to die. I just didn't have the tools to deal with the amount of depression and anxiety and lack of strength, lack of identity, like all the lack of the rise. I did not have the rise tools, and I didn't think it was going to be possible for me. So I was trying to quit. Luckily, God had more sense than I did, and I went back into treatment and graduated and had been sober ever since then. But having a relationship with my dad, he said, well, why don't you do this? Yes. Youth Esteem Services. I went, well, I guess, yes, I will, because I like puns. And so yes, I will. And I started meeting with a gentleman who was in my Bible study, and all of a sudden, he's 70. He said, I want you to coach me because I want to start doing CrossFit. And I said, awesome. So I started coaching him doing CrossFit. Well, he's a business manager, and he does works for Impacts mostly and writing grants. And I went, all right, that was a God mic drop. I'm not mad. That's cool. And all these other people have just kind of fallen into that category of knowing where I shine is shining the light on others and letting them see their own light. Um, and realizing to do that, it's easier to start when people are younger and we're a little bit more malleable in our ideals of ourselves and our identity basically to then try to fix somebody when they're older. It is much easier having done it on both sides. So the Youth Esteem Services, what I liked about it is it's multifaceted. It's so much. So at first, I thought, well, CrossFit Kids would be the way to go, and I thought I had to be the one that would run the program. So I have lots of energy, as you can tell, and lots of enthusiasm, and I don't have a lot of managing of things. So I'm great at managing people, but when it comes to a lot of things, I'm like, yeah, I'm bored. I need to go somewhere else. Can somebody who's good at this do this? And what I realized, instead of trying to make myself better at all the things I'm not good at, like doing connection interviews with people about resiliency and identity and strength and empowerment, um, or doing a CrossFit Kids class in Core City, Detroit, which this one coach who I've coached for a couple years and known named Helen, she's going to do, and I'm going to help her. I just came up with that on Friday when I met with her, and which I haven't even told you about yet. So that's why it was super exciting. Um, so that's what the Youth Esteem Services came about. And ultimately, I love seeing people even open their idea to a spark of what's possible. It very few people have one of the reasons I liked what Jill was talking about is from an early age she had that, well, let's go. Let's just go. I want the challenge. I want the challenge. I'm much more like a person who does CrossFit than a CrossFitter. And that's why I like being a good CrossFit coach, because I am the person who's going to complain and look at the clock and realize, I can't believe I chose to do this for another 18 minutes. What am I thinking? And blah, blah. And then the rest of the time, it's a fight just to make myself get through it. And then after I go, man, this was stupid and horrible. I'll be back tomorrow. Like, so I'm a normal CrossFitter. Um, as opposed to, ooh, look what I get to do today. We're going to do, no, 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 no. I have to lie to myself and David Goggins the approach and say, ooh, I get to do this today. Whereas you're like, ooh, yeah. Okay, so that seems kind of hard and scary. Maybe I'm going to tackle that first. And I'm like, there's not enough chalk to make me get to that workout, let alone like attack it first. And that's really the nice thing is it's an entrepreneur foundation to support entrepreneurs. That's what the idea of youth esteem services is. I was able to help one of this amazing person who had lost her arm last year and then made Wadapalooza CrossFit event and was the only teen out there with all of these adults who most of them have had their injury for a long time, and she had been 7 months removed maybe,
Oh my
and
gosh.
just watching how people watched her and watching how people responded to, you know what, I need to be, this is where I'm going to get emotional, responding to, I'm going to be a better person, watching Emily just approach a one arm leg rope climb that she learned 10 minutes before trying to do it on a stage in front of people being live streamed. And she got through the hard part of the other part of the workout, got to the rope climb and spent her time just doing it. And I was in tears, not because she wasn't succeeding, air quotes, I'm air quoting, even though we're on a podcast, I have to tell people. Um, it was because her approach never wavered. She didn't get angry, she got more determined. And that is such a foreign, when it comes to working out or something for myself, that is super foreign. I do not get more emboldened. I don't get stronger and more resilient and dedicated to be like, yeah, let's kick this butt. I'm like, okay, this broke me. I can come back later if I choose to. I'm okay with that. And so I was able to, experience that and share it with Amy Bream, who was a girl at the games with one leg, and she kept struggling. And I sat there and I pulled her aside and just told her what she, her approach to her struggle meant to me. And I'm in tears and she's crying. And then her coach is named Scooter and he's a heart of a human and gives great hugs too. And it's just a crazy. And all these people became friends and like, that's just what it is. It's all these people who everybody struggles in life. And it's hard for me to remember as a kid not being skewed by alcohol and drugs that before alcohol and drugs, I still struggled with, well, who am I? Why, am I good enough? Other people have this and I don't have this, or I'm not tall and I'm not like all these friends of mine just come and pick me up because I'm a little guy, but I don't want to be picked up because that doesn't make me feel good, and no girls, I was always the, oh, cute friend. So no girls wanted to date me because they were all taller than me. And then seventh grade happened and they were really tall and I was awkward more than I am now. So it was just it was a whole horrific, never ending, like, what is, like, quicksand pit of life. And I even at 15 I thought I don't want this for the rest of my life. So literally one day me and my friend took, I think, 30 pills or something like that. We didn't even know what they are, all mixed pills. Just took 30 pills and blacked out for 3 days. And I guess I functioned somewhat. I don't know. But just did stuff like that. Like how I ended up smoking crack is somebody had a pipe and there was crack residue in the pipe and we put weed in it. And I thought, we all said, what's that white stuff in there? And I was like, oh, it's resin. It's fine. I'll do it. And knowing resin's not white, but I wasn't an idiot. Um, but I didn't care. I wanted to feel different and I didn't have the tools to do it in a healthy way. My parents tried the best they could. They took me to counselors, but I needed 26 months of inpatient living with people who struggled the way I did to see that it was possible. Now, I pray and I hope most people don't need that. And I'm well aware that most people don't need that. But everybody needs their tribe. And everybody's tribe can be different. That's great. That's part of the reason why I like powerlifting. That's why I like Olympic weightlifting. That's why I like bro gym sesh stuff. That's why I like CrossFit because they kind of incorporate almost everything. And it's part of the reason why I still go to AA meetings is because I've been going to my home group for over 24 years, I think, or something like that, because I have accountability. They know me. They know if I'm up, if I'm down, they will call me on my stuff. And as youth nowadays, like I have a 15 and a half year old and a 13-year old, my daughter, everything they hear and see is so skewed and non-realistic, not based on reality. And the reason I started the podcast in hopes, well, the reason I came to you hoping that you would start the podcast was having spent just a little bit of time with you and feeling the best way I can describe how I know you are my tribe is when I spoke with you, I felt at home. And apparently now I'm going to get emotional too. What I've spent COVID doing was learning to be vulnerable in public. So when I reached out to you and said, hey, here's an idea, I want to help my daughter. She's 13. She is past the point of listening to me. The ooh phase is straight up. Sometimes she will allow me to kiss her forehead if I deserve it. And I don't know what I do to or not to deserve it. But she was struggling, and I just, the powerlessness and helplessness I felt to make her heart feel like it's going to be okay. You're good enough. To be wherever she is, to be at home. She didn't have that. And what was horrible was not being able to give that to her anymore. And when my kids were little, I could run, I could pick them up if they were struggling. If they were hurt or somebody was mean, we could have a conversation. Well, now my opinion not only doesn't matter, it's usually wrong. And I refused to sit by and not do anything because just because I can't do it the way I'd always done it, this is where I get resilient and where I get, oh, hell no, we're going. Like, if it's not about me, then I'm fine. But 100%, I would die for her without even thinking about it. And me, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do 100 burpees for time. So maybe we work on that over the next month, as opposed to like, if it's, you know what, it's going to make her smile, do whatever. Okay, I'm not going to think twice. And so that's how I am. That's how I know I'm a good coach. That's how I know I'm a good dad, is because I will show resiliency and identity and strength and in power when it comes to shining somebody else's light and lifting them up. I don't now what's really nice is when I'm open to meeting humans like you, I can rely on you to do what you shine to do, which is the way you interviewed Jill and the way it was so, you were just there, dead on, just having a conversation. It, yes, you might have had, an agenda a little bit, but it wasn't really an agenda. It was you being your natural state. And because I watched you, like, if people listen to it, it's great, but I hope they watch you because you're so coachable. Like, you're literally like getting closer to Jill when she's talking, and I can see you going, ooh, okay, that's a good, like, I want to try that. And oh, wait, breathing. Okay. Like, I saw you kind of perk up, go, all right. Because of your desire to be better and your desire to just be that way. That's your natural state. That's your flow state. Like, I love, Hinshaw and Bergeron and I don't know if it was Malcolm Gladwell or somebody else who talked about the flow state, that you were in it. And that's how you know you're good. When I'm interviewing people or connecting with people, I just want to sit back and do what you do and just go, oh, that's so awesome. And it's not really professional. And so when I approached you and you said, I would love to do that. I would love to create a space for women to talk about how they get through what they all go through. And to me, my son has been cool. So March 20th, 2020, since then we have not missed a week of working out. And he has worked out with me at least once a week, every week, even when both of us had COVID, like to the point where I had to get IV antibodies and all that stuff. We still worked out. It was definitely not my strongest workout, but we worked out. And so he's dealing with things a little differently, and thank God he still listens to me. I bought him the book called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, and so he's going to read that and growth mindset book that we're going to do together. My daughter is a little bit less like, it's a book. Like, I don't want to really be in school doing books. Why are you going to give me a book? But she's also the one who learned kip or butterfly pull-ups during the Open a couple years ago with me. Um, so we just click differently. And what I realized is you are somebody she would listen to, because I don't know if you even gave your bio at the beginning of the first one, but that would be something I think the listeners would be interested in, because your bio is pretty stinking fantastic. And like every time you kept telling me different things, I'm like, I'm gonna have to literally write this stuff down to remember it. Like, what? Oh, and you just threw that extra piece in there right there, and I'm like, wait, what? No big deal. And you're just like, oh, it's my normal, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. And so for me, my desire, it made sense. You clicked. And then just listening to how you were just naturally with Jill, like that's why when I called you and I just told you I appreciated you, because I was so grateful that you're going to take care of my daughter. And the people who come on after are going to be of service for my daughter. The hardest thing I think for people who want to help, which most people do, even if they're super type A, they usually want to help as long as it doesn't interfere with them training. But usually they're going to want to help. It's they want to help youth because they would have appreciated it or they loved it when somebody did that for them. And ultimately, I just hit a brain fart, but it's you being available to produce a platform so then people can be like, even if I can't see the results, it would have been awesome had somebody done this for me. So that's it's kind of different because I'm giving her my hopes is giving her this, and this being what you're doing. It's I know it's going to affect the people who you interview, but it's also already affecting the people who listen. And then it's already made me cry several times, and I'm like, oh, and just super excited that a lot of these kids can listen and be like, so wait a minute, this woman who's this accomplished and this amazing still has these thoughts, still like these things still happen to them. They weren't immune from it, but this is what they did. It gives them it's the potential to give people a toolbox, even if you don't ever see them use those tools. And that's my hope. And when after the first interview, I knew she was in good hands. And so I wanted to say thank you again in public, because normally I would have just interviewed you on my YouTube channel, which I started 2 years ago, which is cool, but this is how I wanted it to be. I just didn't know yet. So, yeah, once again, long-winded answer.
Well, excuse me. I can't say thank you enough for kind of being the brainchild behind this and giving me the opportunity to bring on, different guests and have them tell their stories and have them, hopefully provide some insight or motivation or inspiration to not only your daughter, but the community as a whole. Um, I think it's cool that this podcast can have two very different, very tangible goals. One of which is, like you were saying, you're trying to find a way to better connect with your daughter, empower her, get through to her in a way, in a time when, like every teenage girl, she's sitting there going, ew, dad, I don't want to listen to you. I want to listen to my friends. And hopefully, having her hear experiences from very successful women who have maybe been through the same thing that she's experiencing at the moment and have come out the other side. Um, and as somebody who was once a teenage girl who said, ew, dad, I connect with that a lot because I went through a period of my teenage years where I I didn't want to listen to my dad. I didn't want to listen to my parents at all. I thought that they were, everything they said was dumb and they didn't know what they were talking about. And times have changed since they were a kid and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I would find other things and other people to latch onto to try and, get myself through whatever I was going through. A couple of years down the road, I make it into my, early 20s. And looking back, I'm like, wow, they were right the whole time. I just didn't want to listen. But I was lucky that I still had other things that I could connect to and try to learn from and grow from, that even when I was in a time where I wasn't wanting to listen to my parents, I still had people to help guide me in the right direction. And
Yes.
so the fact that hopefully that's what this podcast will be for your daughter, I can't explain how much that means to me, to be able to provide that for her. And then at the same time, not just your daughter, there's an entire community, an entire world of people who could be
Over
going
50%.
going through the very same thing, and hopefully using this platform as a way to um, provide that connection for them to say, hey, I'm not alone. There are other people who are going through this or who have been through this and have come out on the other side, and there's hope for me and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just need to get there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You're very welcome. I so grateful.
Me too. And I hope the listeners are grateful as well. I hope this podcast continues to grow. I think it could be something really cool. And I think we can get it there.
Yes.
So, going back to your daughter, can you just tell us a little bit about your daughter? And
Yeah. So so the best way I can describe her, which is one of my favorites, she was like 2 something years old. She'd already been potty trained, but she had a diaper on. We were at her house. She did something. I put her in timeout. She knocks on the door and says, "Dad, I pooped." And I'm thinking, she has a diaper on. Why would? So I opened the door. She pooped on the floor. And I said, "Did you take your diaper off and poop on the floor because I put you in timeout?" And she went, "Yep." I literally shut the door, called my wife. I said, "You need to come home. This is what happened. I don't know what to do." She's in hysterics laughing. And I'm like, "I'm not joking. I just lost," and she's like 2. Um, but she's so caring and smart and independent and such amazing qualities that just like anything, it's like a fire. If a fire is not in the right container, it's going everywhere. If a fire is in the right container, you can use it to heat a house, to move a train, to melt steel. You can all kinds of amazing things. And now that she's more worried about how her friends think and this and that, and it's it's really tough because I miss daddy daughter dances. I miss being that, I don't even know what it is, but being that person that she can go to, mainly because a lot of the time I did a lot of my identity was wrapped up in being a gym owner. And so really the only time I saw her was when she would come to the gym, when my wife would bring her to the gym. So we had great times and all that stuff. And now I look back and she doesn't usually just want to play, right? And so we would just play. I just saw a video from 4 years ago. She was going from ring to ring to ring across the whole gym and just for fun, and she was just having a great time. And now it's, hey, take me shopping, but don't be near me while I shop. And I'm like, like out of my wife and I'm the one that shops anyway. So, um, but my my biggest encouragement is even when she does something wrong, she comes back. She takes a little bit longer to come back than I do, but which is she's much more like her mom, like in that. But when she comes back, she says, she's very good about, because I always apologize, but I didn't just say I'm sorry. I explained, listen, this is why I'm sorry. I did this. It's not how I felt towards you. I'm still fallible and this and that. She apologizes very much like that. And so her heart is wonderful, but I watch her get bombarded with all the negativity of not just COVID, but teenage girls. And then all of a sudden, she couldn't go to school for a year and a half. And then when she does, she can't interact with other kids, and you have to stay apart. I mean, it's just, oh my goodness. And now people struggle to like have conversations. Like they'll literally, it's a joke, but they'll text each other across the room from each other or right next to each other. And that's how they're talking. And one of her best qualities is that she sees people. So one of the things that she does is after school, she walks over to the elementary school and she helps first and second grade kids who struggle. If they're good, they get to spend time with her, like 5-10 minutes with her. Like she's a reward system for kids to do good and try to work on having good days. I could not ask to be more proud. And one of the things that I like is I've tried to instill in her, because she's naturally good at every sport she tries. She was the fastest kid in flag football, even of the boys. Is I'm when she just has effort and she tries, that's what makes me happy.
That's awesome.
Because I don't have a preordained idea of what I want her to do in life. I want her to feel comfortable and at home in her skin where she is. So, but yeah, she's my little goober, because the first time I saw her, she was the size of a goober pea.
I love that. Well, um, that is the inspiration behind this podcast. She's the reason this podcast exists. So she might not listen, but give her a big thank you from me.
She listened to the first one.
That makes me very happy. And I hope she continues to listen to the rest. And if you're listening right now, thank you. Um, and don't hate your dad for telling the story about how you pooped on the floor.
She knows. I usually lead with that story. It's fun.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. I mean, that is incredible inspiration to be the driving force behind this podcast. And it just makes me so happy to be part of this and to be part of her story and your story. And yeah, it's just exciting.
Thank you.
um, so before we wrap it up, I have one question that I'd like to ask you. Um, could you explain or define what rise means to you?
So the resiliency portion is getting up every time we go down. The identity portion is knowing my why I get up. So for me, my why is I constantly want to be better human. So I do want to be better, especially I want to be a better child of God, but I really want to be a better husband, a better father, better son to my parents, a better friend, a better coach. And then it goes down the list. But as you notice, my prowess with physical activity is underneath all those because I'm much more type B personality and really want others to get better. But that's where that identity is. My identity comes from, I have a higher power and I have a relationship with a higher power. And because I do, I was able to stay sober. Because I'm able to stay sober, I was able to get married, which meant I have family and my folks like me now. And I helped my dad stay sober and he's helped me. And so it's amazing. So the identity is my why I get up from the resiliency. The strength portion is what tools do I have to be able to get up? All the stuff I've learned, all the stuff I gleaned, like when I was listening to the podcast of you and Jill, and she was talking about breath work and really just almost like, okay, be where this is, be here for a second. And I was like, yeah, okay. Those tools are huge for me because I don't get the choice of when life happens to me. And that would be wonderful if I said, oh, all right, I've been preparing. It's just like with the open or quarterfinals. At least they tell you there's going to be a bench somewhere. That's not how life really is. Life is like you don't know what's coming, but everything's on the table. So we have to have tools for everything. Like that's a lot of everything. And then the empowerment is sharing it. It's not just for me to have because I don't feel whole if I'm not connected to others. I just don't. And that's really what the rise means to me. And it's funny because somebody told me those qualities, and then when I said, well, this is kind of what I was thinking, and you were very quickly sent me back. Yeah, it's called rise. This is what we're doing. And I was like, yes. I was like, thank you. So it was yours, but that's what my idea was. But you put it into words really concise, really quickly. That's what I was like. Oh, okay, good choice, Jeff. I guess. Yeah, good. Yeah. And then I get to get out of your way and just be like, hey, do you want to be on with this awesome woman? Everybody's like, yeah. And then I forgot actually you were because I was coaching and you were like, hey, I'll see you in 25 minutes. And I went, oh man, that's me. So yeah, does that answer that question?
Yeah, that does. And I really like um how you were able to kind of tie it all into one story of like, you fall and you get back up. Getting back up is resiliency. Why you get up is your identity. The tools you have to get up is your strength, and sharing those tools with everybody else is your empowerment. And I really like that. That's very concise, very easy to digest, and yeah, I like it a lot. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Well, you came up with it, so thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up, but as you know, we end every episode with your favorite part, my favorite part. All right, Jeff, tell me your best dad joke.
Okay. Did you hear about the guy getting hit by the same bike every day, day after day?
No.
Yeah, it was a vicious cycle.
That's a good one.
I know. I had to have my wife send it to me so I didn't mess it up because I always mess it up somehow. I'm like, the bike one. The bike one.
That
She,
was good.
yeah, she shakes her head. And actually, my daughter's the one who told me that one.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It's very moving story, And I really appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share that with the world. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
All right.